Picture this battle, the Senate Parliamentarian versus Donald Trump. And guess who just won? The Senate Parliamentarian. Donald Trump's not going to be happy with Elizabeth MacDonough, a nonpartisan, non-elected person who is the in-house ethicist and rules keeper for the Senate. And what did she just do? She just went through the big, beautiful bill of Donald Trump, that ugly, depraved bill that will add $5 trillion onto the national debt. And she struck a number of provisions, snuck in there, finding that they violated the Byrd Act. I'll talk about that too, in Donald Trump's attacks on the Federal Reserve, particularly trying to defund many aspects of the Federal Reserve because he's in a war with Jay Powell, who is the central banker at the Federal Reserve, who's keeping our economy rolling against Donald Trump's failed economic policy. Let's talk about the Senate Parliamentarian and how in budget and bill reconciliation, she holds the keys. You hold the keys. You're here on Legal AF with Michael Popok, and let's get to it. So, Senate Parliamentarian, and she has been the Senate Parliamentarian since 2012, is Elizabeth MacDonough. She is hired ultimately by the majority leader of the Senate, who is now John Thune. She serves at his pleasure, and she is, and that role is not part of the Senate, not elected, not confirmed by the Senate in any way, except it serves as the Speaker's rule keeper. And she goes through bills when they come from the House over to the Senate, especially about budget issues, and she goes through it line by line and strikes anything that she says can't be part of the reconciliation process, where you take a Senate bill and a House bill and you reconcile them to make one bill. That's what we're watching go on right now. That's the sausage making that's happening over in the Senate. And she has gone through and she has found three things in particular, which dovetails with a hot take I just did the other day about Donald Trump's assault on the Federal Reserve and his trying to deny the Federal Reserve the information and the statistics and the economic data that they need as inputs from the federal government in order for them to set central bank policy about interest rates and monetary policy. So buried in that bill, but ferreted out by the parliamentarian, Mrs. MacDonough or Miss MacDonough, was a cut of $1.4 billion in the Federal Reserve's staff budget. Donald Trump wants to defund the Federal Reserve. It was buried right there. The only thing that's keeping the American economy tethered to the planet Earth is Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve. It's the only thing the markets trust. It's the only thing that the financial services industry trusts. It's the only thing that Wall Street trusts, is Jay Powell being the adult in the room in setting monetary and economic policy in his role as the central banker, as the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump hates that. He's even quipped the other day that he's going to go down to the Federal Reserve and name himself to be the head of the Federal Reserve, just showing you, he's not, you know what I'm trying to say? Picnic is short a few sandwiches. In addition to the $1.4 billion that she just took a red pen and struck from Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, was another $300 million where she wanted to get rid of, or he wanted to get rid of funding for the Office of Financial Statistics. These are all inputs that the Federal Reserve needs and Donald Trump hates, because all he wants Jay Powell to do is to bend the knee and cut interest rates, so that there's free and cheap money to wallpaper over Donald Trump's failed economic policies. And then buried in there also was another $75 million that the parliamentarian caught and cut as a violation of the Byrd Act, or the Byrd Act, that eliminates money for the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. Donald Trump doesn't want public accounting oversight. He doesn't want anybody watching to make sure nobody cooks the books, because he's cooking the books. He cooked all the books of his own companies with fraudulent, this was all proven in court, fraudulent bank statements, fraudulent financial records, fraudulent internal books and records of the company. So he wants to get rid of the ability of accounting oversight boards to make sure that books and records are properly done by accountants and CPAs. Not so fast, says Elizabeth MacDonough. Now, the Byrd Act, passed in 1985 by then late Senator, or now late Senator Robert Byrd, it was a limit that Senate put on themselves to limit what could be in a bills. And if they're extraneous to the budget, or they raise the debt, or they were slipped in at the last minute, because in reconciliation, generally a majority decision, 51-49, is enough to get these things passed. But there are certain things that require a 60-vote filibuster proof vote total. And what presidents like Trump try to do is get things into the bill so that he only needs 51 votes in the Senate, which they have, not 60. But Thune, the senator, John Thune, who's the Senate majority leader, has said that he's not going to override Elizabeth MacDonough and her interpretation of the Byrd Act, the Byrd Rule, sorry. And he is going to eliminate these items from the budget, meaning they are safe. Federal Reserve will not be defunded. That's a good thing for our economy. The Office of Financial Statistics and Security will not be defunded. And accountants, you're still going to have an oversight board over you to make sure what you're doing for public companies is accurate. See, buried in that couple of thousand pages, even legislators didn't read, were policy decisions by Donald Trump to go after his enemies. And thank God for now, although you know there's going to be pressure by Donald Trump to try to fire this non-partisan, professional, career rule keeper in Elizabeth MacDonough and try to replace it with one of his lackeys. For now, she's being protected. A, because she's really good at her job and really respected in a bipartisan way within the Senate. The fact that Thune, who by and large is a lackey of Donald Trump, he has a backbone occasionally. The fact that Thune is not overriding her and it's not going to try to salvage these attacks on the Federal Reserve and their ability to be the central bank indicates that her seat is safe. And there's only so much Donald Trump can do. He'll post things on social media. He'll, call out Elizabeth MacDonough, an unelected person not confirmed by the Senate, didn't get a mandate, didn't get the votes that I get, is stopping my big, beautiful bill, something like that, I'm sure. But Donald Trump's got his own problems, I'll end this hot take on. He is tremendously unpopular with America. Carolyn Levitt and other people around his press corps try to make him feel better and say that Donald Trump is resonating with all reaches of the American people. And he's not. He's not. His unfavorability rating is at an all-time high at 54%, and that's from Fox News. If you go to CNN or MSNBC, he's 21 points under, meaning he's 21 points more unfavorable than favorable. This is not sustainable. And while he's not up for election or re-election at the midterms, his entire agenda is. His entire ability to continue to do damage to our constitutional republic and our economy beyond the midterms is in play and at risk. He's hoping, as you can see, that he's got his wag the dog moment, that he's going to back us into this war between Israel and Iran and try to flip the script on his legacy and get the country to rally around him in wartime. You see it coming. I'm calling it out now. But based on the marches in the street, the 6 million people who took to the street for No King's Day, and that movement is only growing and is the silent, not so silent majority, we should have a successful midterm election, not just for the Democrats, but for our constitutional republic demands that we rebalance the government, that the president, who fancies himself a king, a fascist, and a tyrant, has gotten too powerful. And that's the reason you're seeing these policies being attempted that are out of lockstep with mainstream America, and why you're seeing the polling numbers so terrible for Donald Trump. It'll be a thumbs up or thumbs down on the Trump economy, on the Trump agenda, on the Trump immigration policy, on the Trump approach to foreign policy and domestic policy and inflation and prices going up, because there'll be nobody else from the Democrats that are on the ballot. Midterms are all about the sitting president. And a sitting president who's already lame duck by that point, because he can't run for re-election, despite what he says, is the lamest of lame ducks. And his party should suffer as a result, with Democrats retaking the House and the Senate. And then once we do that, then we're cooking. Then we're cooking with investigations, with impeachment proceedings. I mean, there's already been at least a dozen articles of impeachment that any self-respecting Congress should have already proposed. But that's what will happen. We just have to bide our time, continue to call out the assault on democracy, and celebrate people like the parliamentarian of the Senate, who in her own way, in her own professional way, her own independent way, is acting to protect our democracy and the way it should function and the way it should work. So I'll continue to do it all myself right here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. So take a moment, hit the free subscribe button, and I'll see you on my next hot take or my next Legal AF podcast. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.